would be fucking boring if every adaptation was exactly the same as the book. Welcome to Groovy Movies. My name's Lily Austin.
And my name's James Brailsford. Hello.
Hello. And this week on the programme, we're going to be talking about Emerald Fennel's forthcoming adaptation of Wuthering Heights and all of the controversy around it.
The controversy I had no idea about until I started looking into it. And then we'll also be reviewing Caught Stealing, which is Darren Aronofsky's latest film, starring Austin Butler, Zoe Kravitz, and Doctor Who's Matt Smith.
And we're also going to be looking at the Venice Film Festival as it just wrapped last night. And there were some interesting things being showcased there, namely Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis behind-the-scenes documentary.
Megadoc, yeah. Cannot wait for that one. Love a good Francis Ford Coppola behind the scenes making of doc. I'm a big aficionado of them.
Exactly, there's an illustrious history there that we are both big fans of.
Absolutely. So how would you like to kick us off, Lily?
Well, yes, I wanted to first of all talk about showmances. Now, to be clear, a showmance is a fake romance, an alleged romance between co-stars that is perpetuated in order to promote a film. But crucially, it's very much for show.
Right. See, I didn't understand the nuance of showmance when you first brought it up. I thought anything that was a romance that originated on the film set was a showmance, but I see that's an actual romance. Rather than a showmance which is manufactured. I see the nuance slipped between my fingers. I'm afraid, Lily.
Well, you see, I mean that absolutely sounds correct, right? But I feel like there's a sort of a third play on words with the showmance because it is all for show. So this is why I'm being very strict about this definition, though I suppose there is room for argument and debate about it. But in this instance, I want to talk about the alleged
Sandra
ones.
Bullock, you know.
What about them?
Well, I don't know. Wasn't they? You know. Anyway.
Well, we can get into this, but I wanted to talk about this because there was one film over the summer that we didn't talk about last week, and that was The Naked Gun, the reboot of the classic comedy. Well, I guess it was actually more of a sequel technically because Liam Neeson actually plays Leslie Nielsen's son, which I thought sounded charming. But Pamela Anderson starred alongside Neeson as the love interest, and during the film's press tour, it seemed like there had been some romance on set.
I was making bread for him all the time and muffins and cookies, and we really bonded. We really fell madly in love on the set.
Velma's become a new pal. I'm delighted, you know. And she's terrific. I have every admiration for her.
I don't know, what is your proudest moment?
Working with you.
And working with me, taking me under his wing.
They flirted with each other. Neeson speak rapturously about how talented Anderson was, and she talked about baking him loaves of sourdough, and there was and honestly the internet became so excited by this, myself included, that the potential for these two to find love together, because you know they're actors of a certain age, they've both had very difficult love lives in the past. They've had some hardships, romantically speaking. It seemed like the perfect match.
Right, okay.
But last week, they basically admitted that it was just a joke and that it was a classic showmance to help sell the movie.
How did you feel after you got yourself invested into that emotionally just a little bit?
Just disappointed because they seemed so adorable together. And they were so silly in all of these clips, like very playful, but both quite kind of reserved people, but fun and both intelligent. Ever since seeing that fantastic documentary about Pamela Anderson that came out on Netflix, I think it was like last year, I've been quite invested in her and her kind of renaissance. So this seemed like the perfect kind of way to tie everything together. But you know what, whatever, it's fine. I think that it's quite funny of them to just lean into it. But what it really got me thinking about was, is this particular marketing strategy actually useful? Does it actually help promote films? Because there seems to be this assumption that it helps. But what do you think, James?
What do I think about them? Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, showmances were all a bit new to me, and then I didn't quite get the memo on what they were, so I thought it was like just general romances. So I do they work? I mean, let's have a look. Let's have a look. I mean, the one that comes to, well, I guessed it was a showman's just because I remember at the time, like, was it last year with the Sydney Sweeney rom-com? What was it called?
Anyone But
About
You.
Anyone But You. There we go. That had a smell of a showman's about it.
Yes, Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell. At the time, there was a lot of buzz about them because the film was very sexy. They're both quite attractive. It seemed like there was a lot of chemistry between them. But since then, it has been disclosed by Glenn Powell that this was very much a key part of the marketing strategy for the film. The kind of placing of romantic photos between them being flirtatious with each other on the red carpet, despite the fact that Sweeney was engaged to the film's executive producer at the time. She very much was the one spearheading this campaign. Glenn Powell was like, she's very smart, she knows how to market a film, and it was all part of selling the film. And it kind of worked, right? I mean, the film had a budget of 25 million and it made 220 million at the box office. And rom-coms do not do well these days. And this one was like completely unusual in being so successful.
Yeah, I think Smart Moves managed to make it for a reasonable amount of money. I didn't realize it was that low budget, but yeah, which is just, I think what's got to happen industry wide at the moment. There's still an audience for seeing films at the cinema, just not as big as it once was. So we need to get those costs down.
You need to get those costs down, but also you need to get two sexy people who seemingly are having a relationship.
I mean, I guess the thing I'm noticing here is like it kind of works if the material you're also promoting is either a rom-com or a comedy. I'm guessing, more serious subjects, a showman is just going to be a big distraction. I mean, I guess with Anyone But You want to kind of imagine that the figures that you're seeing in the story, that's happening in real life because the romance was so strong and the chemistry was so real, they couldn't help but feel it outside of the acting roles. That's the kind of the thing that we're being sold with the showman, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. That actually ties in quite nicely with what Lady Gaga said about A Star Is Born, because there were strong rumors about her and Bradley Cooper. I mean, ignoring the fact that Bradley Cooper tends to go for significantly younger women than Lady Gaga and than himself. But there were rumors about this. And then basically 2 days after she'd won the Oscar, she went on Jimmy Kimmel and said that, no, this was an artistic choice. Like, we wanted the audience to see the love between us that's in the film. We wanted you to really understand that. So I think, yeah, there is an argument that it's sort of about connecting what you're seeing in the film with real life to make you want to see it, I guess. But I mean, I don't know if it just has to be rom-coms or comedies, because Divergent is like, a kind of action fantasy film. And that also had this rumor around it pertaining to Theo James and Shailene Woodley. And that also, I mean, that was never confirmed and seemed to dissipate as soon as the press tour was over. But again, $85 million budget, but it made $289 million at the box office. So I think it does actually work.
Okay. I mean, quite possibly, Lee. Quite possibly. It certainly doesn't seem to do any harm. Put it that way. It doesn't put worth a punt.
I think. Okay, you're being cynical, and I was cynical before I started to look at the numbers. Okay, because
right. All right, you're putting cynicism to one side. You look at the cold hard facts.
That's what I'm looking. I'm purely looking at
just
the
at the numbers.
Okay, my sample, my pool is small. I could only find 5 films.
I mean, it's a very small subgenre, isn't it? Of deliberately. Yeah,
well, no, I actually think it's less small than you think, because basically every film that comes out, this is how like tabloids sell, is by stoking the fires of rumors around romances. It happens on every film, even at, Caught Stealing, the film that we're going to be discussing later. That also, there were strong rumors about Austin Butler and Zoe Kravitz based on paparazzi shots of them in New York, which were clearly when they were filming the film. So yes, they're playing a couple. Of course, they're going to look like a couple, but rumors circulated. So I think it's very, very common, but it's whether or not the actors lean into it, But I honestly thought, if I looked at the numbers, because Naked Gun, it did okay at the box office. It just about broke it even, but it didn't set the world on fire. So I was like, does this even really work? But my theory of Naked Gun is it would have actually completely crashed if it wasn't for this showmance that had so much attention online. Because it made me more interested in seeing the film, having seen the two of them be so funny, because they just seemed very funny and cute together. It wasn't actually all about the romance element. It was more just the chemistry.
Fair enough. I mean, I was tempted to go see Naked Gun just because I'd heard it was kind of okay. So I guess that was swaying me. I hadn't really heard about this show, man. So it hadn't moved the needle for me. But then I was blissfully ignorant. But now now you've pointed out the fact that basically there's a lot of like gossip traded as news these days. So you're just generating stuff for the gossip mags, aren't you? If you kind of play up to this showman, it's a way of getting some free publicity. You're giving your the media what they want. Some tittle tattle.
I mean, I would say that the idea that gossip as news is a nowadays thing, I would disagree with. I mean, Hollywood Babylon would say otherwise.
Sorry,
but yes, I mean,
it's
in
always
general,
it's a part thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there is a forthcoming movie called The Mark, starring Orlando Bloom and Jessica Alba. The premise is a single father is drawn into a world of high-stakes espionage where he's mistaken for a dangerous assassin. Honestly,
that old chestnut.
Well, yeah. Honestly, to me, that sounds quite terrible, particularly because Orlando Bloom is attached. But there are strong rumors about him and Jessica Alba. So let's see if the rumor mill helps sell this film.
Let's keep eyes on that one. See if we can spot a trend happening.
Exactly. Now, last week we intended to talk about the rumours, the controversy surrounding Emerald Fennel's adaptation of Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. But we ran out of time. But I think that's quite fortunate because in the week since, the first trailer has dropped for the film. Mm-hmm. So, James, I wanted us to talk about the controversy. I think we should start at the beginning.
Okay. So what century? What century? The publication of the novel? I mean...
Very good. Well, the controversy around the film, it kind of kicked off as soon as there were the original reports that this film was being made and about the casting. So Margot Robbie has been cast as Kathy, Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff. That is very controversial because in the book, we follow Kathy and Heathcliff as their kids up through their adolescence to adulthood. And, sorry, spoiler alert, but Kathy dies around the age of 18. So casting Margot Robbie in the part who is 35 was somewhat surprising. And then with regards to Heathcliff, he's described in the book as dark-skinned and with gypsy blood, I believe. Jacob Elordi is white. They're both Australian, actually. Yeah. This is a great shout-out to Australian actors, this film. So that caused a stir.
Yeah, I had no idea there was all this controversy brewing around Wuthering Heights until on my YouTube feed, the algorithm figured out in between all the American politics and analysis of film Tenet, they were like, you know what, this guy's going to be really interested in Wuthering Heights controversies. So yeah, I don't think I've read the book. I only vaguely know of it from the, Kate Bush song and just pop culture.
Hell yes. And you know what? You and Kate Bush have something in common because she never read Wuthering Heights. She just heard about it's based on the film adaptation that she saw.
Right, there you go. So essentially I've got the same pop culture memory, which is very, very vague at best. And digging into the details, I didn't realise that Heathcliff character wasn't just some rugged man. No, he was like, so then suddenly you realise, the story's much more about, rather than it's just a romance, it's about class and race and everything. Yeah, it's a lot more to it. So that opened my eyes to the film. And then, so if you do know the novel, you do know what it's really about, this is probably going to seem quite... I don't know, unsubtle.
Absolutely. Just wrong, I think, is the impression I'm getting from the conversation online. So there was that. And then over the summer, there was a test screening in Dallas for the film. James, just quickly, what is a test screening for those who don't know?
A test screening, it's something that's been happening for almost as long as the film industry itself, where before a film is finished and certainly well before it's released, it is shown to a select audience, usually in the kind of cinema in the kind of area of the US that represents a more like general cinema goer. So you want to go straight into Manhattan. You'll go out somewhere in the suburbs. So you get a slightly more general subsection of your audience. You get them to watch the film. Often doesn't have completed visual effects, often doesn't have completed music, and then you'll be given a scorecard at the end, and there'll be very general things like what's out of 10, what did you rate this movie, or were you satisfied to dissatisfied, on a mark. But then there will also be testing specific things. There might be things about a particular character. How funny did you find this character? How much did you like Leonardo DiCaprio's portrayal of this character? So it can be very granular. And so what they're looking for, they just want to make sure that the films that they're making are, for a general audience, they're kind of hitting the mark. And if they're not, that can trigger a lot of panic, and that can usually be the undoing of a film, especially if it's studio interference at a late moment. I mean, Marvel historically never really previewed the films because, of course, the thing about previewing a film is people can then leak what they've seen online. So if you're trying to keep the plot under wraps, you've got to be careful. So historically, Marvel hadn't done that, but it was very telling that the past 6 months they've had test screenings everywhere, and they've also been reshooting. They've been reshooting like crazy the past 5 years. That's part of the workflow. But off the back of these test screenings, they're then just changing the endings, reshooting for 3 weeks to try and change the backstory of a character. It's like, God damn it, guys! You should, you've got 100 years of making films. You should know the things you should and shouldn't do by now. But yeah, that's a test screening. It's just to gauge interest and to make course corrections.
And this definitely, in this instance, it definitely did stoke there were a lot of leaks, and it stoked the kind of attention and controversy around the film because, according to some reports, the film opens with a public hanging where a man ejaculates mid-execution, which sends the crowd into a kind of orgiastic frenzy, is how it was described. I'm not going to... As that was just at the start of the film, I felt okay to tell you guys about that one. I don't want to give any more spoilers, so I'm not going to say anything more. But if you want the full kind of rundown of titillation in the movie, you can look at the World of Real article about it. We'll put a link in the show notes. So that was also caused a bit of fuss because apparently the film is like incredibly sexualized, which is different from the book. Well, that's it.
And very sexy, isn't it?
Well, yes, exactly. And then now this trailer has come out and it's, very sexy, and people are upset about that.
I can follow you like a dog to the end of the world.
Fall in love.
Are you feeling quite right?
You want me to stop?
What do you think about it? What did you think of the trailer?
So the trailer had me intrigued, want to see it. I did think, oh, bloody hell, very sexy though. I sometimes feel a little awkward sitting in sustained sexy films, So I guess there's that. I certainly wasn't like, well, hey, great, sexy Wuthering Heights. I guess I wasn't surprised because it's Emerald Fennel, so I knew she wasn't going to do a traditional adaptation. That was going to be clear. I don't associate Wuthering Heights with being a super sexy, sensual, erotic story. I didn't think that. I get the impression that's not really what it's about, although I haven't read it. I get this. It's more like a gothic, rolling, epic love story or doomed love is the vibe I get, but I haven't read it. So, but
I disagree.
But I haven't read it, so I don't know.
Famously, Heathcliff is considered the archetype of this sort of dangerous, sexy man. Whether or not he is pretty monstrous, actually, and yet he is kind of held up as the sexy, dangerous, forbidden fruit. So I think actually, it depends on your point of view, but I think Wuthering Heights is kind of sexy, and obviously Emerald Fennel has lent into that. I sort of feel like it's kind of wanting to take the fuss around Saltburn because, so much of Saltburn's attention was about these sexy moments that were considered very transgressive. Whether or not they really are, I think it really showcases I think, quite a narrow idea of sexuality that it's so outrageous that someone would lick bathwater. But we're getting off piece. I think that probably she was like, this is creating a lot of this seems to be working. I mean, that film was a huge, financial box office success. The cynical part of me wonders if she kind of thought that really sells. I'm going to lean more into that. And you know what? I thought the trailer looked fucking awesome. I can't wait to see this movie. And I don't really, I think people love to get their knickers in a twist about adaptations of films. And I think, why? It would be fucking boring if every adaptation was exactly the same as the book. We have this beautiful book, this incredible classic. I don't want to see that again and again and again. I want to see something different. Make it your own. I think the bones are there for a good film. You can go wherever you want with it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any attachment to the source material, so I'm not a Wuthering Heights purist. But I am wondering about, things that I do like that are adapted. How much flexibility do we have about the characters? I mean, I think this is probably a way of trying to open up the story in the film to a newer, younger audience who might traditionally find the kind of traditional versions of them a bit stuffy. As in, it's a way of presenting older material to a younger audience. Just
I know. Sorry, I always bristle because, look, I hold my hands up. I listened to Wuthering Heights on audiobook, and when I was going to sleep some years ago, so my memory of it is a little bit patchy because I kept falling asleep, obviously, at 30-minute intervals. But I feel like these stories are like not stuffy at all. Yeah, okay, that of course a historic setting, but it's always incredible when you read any book like this, how it continues to be completely relevant. And okay, having just said like people need to get over adaptations, I do think it's a huge miss to like completely throw out the kind of race element of the book. From the trailer, it does seem like, of course, the class element is there in the film. That seems to be the central part, is the kind of forbiddenness of their attraction to each other, how transgressive that is on that basis. But it does seem to me a real shame to like get rid of that because it's so important to the book. But that aside, I think other than that, do what you want with it. You do not have to stay true to this book. I don't think the book makes for an easy adaptation that's loyal to it because it's such a long book. There's so much that happens in it. So
yeah, I mean, I think because I often, especially I've got more of an attachment, let's say, to perhaps Star Wars or Marvel, but as far as when they remake or redo older stories, but I think my main thing is if you are making changes to the source material on any kind of fundamental level, which in this case it does appear to be some kind of level of race swapping, just make sure the story is worthy of that change. I think ultimately I don't mind what you do with the source materials as long as you are trying to just present the story in a way that you think is the best way for the audience, rather than just deciding to change things arbitrarily because I don't know what you're trying to do. You decide you're just trying to modernize it. I don't think that's where Emerald Fennel's coming from. So I'm looking forward to seeing this film for sure.
I mean, I suspect that it was more about the fact that she'd worked with Jacob Elordi before and she knew he'd make a very sexy and arresting Heathcliff. And from the trailer, I think he does. It's not...
Does Margot Robbie... I didn't realise the age of Kathy. I guess I kind of assumed she was a bit younger, but does it pull you out of the story to see Margot Robbie clearly not the teenage character that is portrayed in the book? Does that cause any kind of dissonance that's slightly disconcerting, or do you think in the world of the film it'll pull you through?
I mean, I think because both of the lead characters are not the characters in the book, neither of them are, that I think it doesn't pull me out of it because already it isn't actually Wuthering Heights. And yeah, maybe what I was thinking, probably the cynical part is calling this Wuthering Heights when it really is only very loosely it. And yeah, perhaps that I can kind of understand why people might, particularly, English lit, former students or students might be very upset by that because they do know this book and it's like you're using that original, that already existing IP to sell your film, and it's not actually that. But to be honest, the fuss around this film means that I'm sure everyone's going to go see it in February, and we all need to be going to cinema, as we say, again and again and again. So I don't care. I'm happy that there is this controversy, but I do think people should calm down a little bit. Like let we've already had 4 adaptations of Wuthering Heights. What's one more?
There we go. What's one more? No, I'm very looking forward to seeing this, and also giving me an excuse to maybe revisit the older one which I haven't seen. The 2011 one, was it Andrea Arnold? I think directed. I'd very much like to see that.
Yeah, and I for some reason I wanted to see it, but I just didn't. And so yes, this is
Same.
a great opportunity for us to revisit, and we can definitely discuss around Valentine's Day when the film is out.
Absolutely, and from what I understand, the 2011 version is a much more accurate version of the story to the book.
Yes, I've heard that is considered the closest to the book, so it will be interesting to do a comparison. But I do find it interesting. Okay, yeah, it's only been 14 years since the last one, which actually is kind of a long time. But the other adaptations were in 1939, 1970, and 1992. So I think in a way, with all classics, it's quite cool to look at the films that they sire, as it were, in different eras. It's kind of like showcasing different eras of film as well as different eras of society, obviously. And I think it's cool, and I'm interested to see how this one will compare to that. Emerald Fennel, it makes beautiful films. I think sometimes the story falls down a little bit, so maybe it's a good thing that she's using an existing story as her structure. But just from the trailer, it looks gorgeous, so I am excited about it.
Well, yeah, talking about films being made in different time periods, the next film we're going to talk about, Caught Stealing, which is Darren Aronofsky's latest film, I was watching it thinking, oh, right, so this film is set in the time period when Darren Aronofsky was running around New York making his feature debut Pi, which was like a hugely influential film for me as a young filmmaker at Bradford University at the time. That came out, and we all loved Pi. And of course, so he's revisiting that time period, that stomping ground in this film, but the film itself couldn't be any more different from his usual style.
Sorry, Miss Kitty.
Oi! What the fuck you doing, geezer? Is that the best you can do? I've got to fly back to London. I need you to take care of my cat.
I like cats.
I like dogs.
Hey, is Russ home?
Who are you? What's the big man?
So yeah, did you get to see this film?
I did. I saw it last night, in fact. Yes. So.
Oh, wow. Hot off the press.
Hot off the press. Yeah. So this stars Austin Butler as a former baseball player who gets caught up in in New York's criminal underworld thanks to his punk neighbor, played by Matt Smith. And Zoe Kravitz also stars as Butler's love interest. Yeah, I did. I really loved the fact that it was set in 1998. That was fun. I loved that this is a film depicting different criminal gangs interacting with each other. So very much like New York's darker side, while at the same time you get these references to the fact that Giuliani is cleaning New York up and gentrification. Yeah. I think there is really something really fantastic about films that are set that are period films from just, 20, 30 years ago. Donnie Darko is like the classic kind of example of that, and I feel like it always works really well.
American Graffiti as well.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the films that are set in the kind of young adulthood of the director.
Yes.
Just because because I was watching thinking this is because I went to my first time going to New York was 1998, so I was watching thinking that is perfectly captured from the production design to I just felt completely in that space because that's the New York that director grew up with. He knows that kind of in his blood. Yeah,
I think there's something very effective about a period film where the period being recreated is being recreated from the director's memory, It's not just from pictures or archive material and kind of the culture's collective memory of a time period. It is from this man's own life. Yeah. I think that always makes it feel like more authentic, and it did feel very, very authentic. But I was very interested in this as Darren Aronofsky's follow-up to The Whale, and you said it was a very different. It's a tonal shift. It's a genre shift for him, right?
Well, this is what I was reading before I went into it, let's say. So yeah, the press around it was like, this is Darren Aronofsky kind of going breezy, going more knockabout, not doing his usual intense art house thing. But when I was watching it, I was like, it isn't. It's still very dark.
Yes.
I wasn't expecting it to be that dark. I was like, like the impression I got and what I was kind of hoping for a bit more was more breezy crime thriller romp. And I tell you what, it did certainly feel like a film that used to be much more common in the cinemas from the 90s. Like, I'm thinking films like Bound, like Reservoir Dogs, these low budget kind of quite violent crime thrillery twisty turny stories, which that was. But this was just like very dark. I didn't expect, not running too specific with spoilers, but there's a lot of death in it. And I just, for what I was hoping was Darren Aronofsky going breezy and a bit more like easy going, it was still, I don't know. There was still a lot of death and darkness.
Absolutely. You know what? Because the film starts off from the beginning, it has this kind of broadly comedic feel to it. I was laughing out loud at Matt Smith in particular as the punk. He's brilliant and is pretty much for the most part a comedic character in the film, or at least at first. And so at first, I was like happy with that, and I kind of forgot I was watching an Aronofsky movie, honestly, because it was kind of knockabout and funny. But then, almost as soon as you get into that zone of thinking it's this kind of film and you're just here to have a good time, it suddenly gets really violent, really dark. Something really shocking happens that completely kind of takes a turn, and you're like, oh yeah, this is Aronofsky. And I initially I didn't like that. I was like, oh god, okay, so we're here now.
I didn't either.
You know what? I think even though I feel like in another director's hands, that could have felt like it was such a tonal shift that it wouldn't have worked. But I think actually he's very, very good at keeping things feeling very grounded and human. The shocking, dark things that happen don't just happen and then get forgotten about. Austin Butler's character feels that. You can see he's being tormented by the stuff that he's dealing with.
Absolutely.
So actually, it feels in keeping with each other, and ultimately is like it does kind of works. But it's a lot. It's you don't think it's just going to be a funny like action crime drama. Like it's dark.
It is dark, yeah, and yeah, I was hoping it was going to be a bit more breezy, but yeah, I'd say once I accepted that this is the world we're in and it's not going to have a happy ending, and I was like, oh no, so once you accept that, yeah, absolutely, it's just the tone of the world, the story that you're in, it all kind of makes sense. So in that respect, it is very well done. But yeah, it was a bit more intense than I expected for what I was hoping was more of a breezy knockabout comedy. But then it was Darren Aronofsky. Although if it had been too breezy, I'd be complaining that he'd sold out. So it's still a Darren Aronofsky film.
It is. But you know what? I have to say, I did find the overall experience of it somewhat empty, even though it was very watchable. I was gasping in all the right places and like very invested and like stressed for Austin Butler's character as he's like going through all these trials. And I at the end kind of had this feeling of like, but what was the point? So what? And I don't know if that's just my general feeling about a kind of violent crime thriller anyway. Like Guy Ritchie's movies are not for me. But I don't think it's that, because, when it's done well, it doesn't seem completely futile. But in this case, I did sort of feel like, I don't know.
It almost felt like all the death and violence felt like it was trying to make a bigger point, but actually by the end of the film, there was no bigger point.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really know exactly what the sum of all of this was.
Yeah, but I think that was a feeling I had, like empty. Like it wasn't. I enjoyed the film. I'm glad I went to see it. But yeah, I essentially kind of empty, and yet it kind of put me through quite a lot of extreme violence to feel to have an empty. It's like, give me some catharsis for sitting through all this, you know, for getting me to like all these characters, and then you just fucking kill them all off. What?
I know. That's how I felt as well. I had no spoilers, but yeah, it was. It was. He's brutal. He doesn't pull his punches, Aronofsky.
Yeah, I mean, and it got us though. It lured us in, and I was like, oh right, but I didn't, and that was well done. But I didn't like what he'd done. Sorry, I just didn't like feeling like that when I thought I was more here for a breezy time.
But I was interested by the fact that the film came out at this point, because there is this sort of indie movie hinterland in late August and September where films that were originally earmarked as a potential award season offering, basically it then transpires once they come out to the studio that, like, no, we're not gonna put money behind this one. It probably isn't gonna have much of a chance. And so then they generally kind of put them out in like late August, kind of at the point where people aren't really going to the cinema as much, they're starting to go back to school. But though sometimes there are big box office movies coming out, so it can also be counter programming. But it's always very interesting to see what comes out in this period, because there are often some like good movies, just not like the right movie to potentially win an Oscar. And this feels that kind of thing, because Aronofsky, you know, The Whale, Requiem for a Dream, he's made films, Mother, that have like had lots of buzz around them and maybe did well for the actors in those films. He's had a few Best Actor awards for his movies, but he has never actually won an Oscar himself. And I feel like it's interesting that with this, he went from doing a very, very serious emotional movie with The Whale, and now he's gone for comedy, which he's never really properly done before. And yeah, ended up with this movie that falls short of what we expect of him, really, in a sense, but actually I think is much more watchable than a lot of his other movies.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It certainly is his biggest nod towards doing a crowd-pleasing film. But yeah, like I say, the one thing I thought is this is absolutely the kind of modestly budgeted film that in the 90s there were lots of. Very starry cast, based around some kind of crime caper, lots of hijinks and violence, so that was very much a type of film that has been phased out. So it was, and I liked it because I went to see it in a premium screen in Castleford. I've travelled all the way for. So it was nice to see that kind of film as well, also getting like the red carpet treatment as far as like trying to make it more of an event at the cinema than just pushing it into smaller screens.
Yeah, you make a good point, actually. The film was set in 1998 and it actually had the feel of a film made in 1998 as well.
Yeah, so if you like those kind of films, this is that kind of thing for sure,
Yeah, I would recommend it. Like it definitely is like a fun movie, and again, original story. Great cast.
No, well, it's based on a novel, I think.
And that's not true at all, of course. Guys, what I just told you was a lie. It's not original. No. It's an adaptation. We love those.
There we go. And the screenplay is written by the author of the book. I don't really know much about him. I just spotted that as the credits were going up.
Yeah, you're right. I did as well, and I was surprised because it feels very, very cinematic. I wouldn't have pegged it to be as an adaptation. All right, well, yeah. So recommendation for us. How many stars would you give it, babe?
Oh, yeah, that's good. I think it's getting it's like 3-ish. Yes, just getting a 3.
It's
like
3, but a good
2.5
3.
to 5. Yeah.
Wait, did you just say 2.5 to 5? Somewhere between those?
No. I was like, it was like it's hovering between a 2.5 and a 3, but it's more on the 3 side. Yeah.
Oh gosh, you're such a harsh marker. I would say it's 3 to 4. 3 to 4 for me.
Oh, right, there we go. That's probably the closest we've been on marks, though.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so the Venice Film Festival wrapped on Saturday, and if you like film, this is a good one to have a look at because it's basically the first major festival in the like direct run up to the Oscars. So we have Sundance and Cannes earlier in the year that give you an idea about what's going to do well at the awards season. But this is the festival where things are really kicking into gear and getting going. The films garnering the most attention definitely, I'd say, had a bit of controversy around them. I was very interested to read about Luca Guadagnino's After the Hunt, starring Julia Roberts, which has made headlines for being what it was described as a Me Too drama, but which uses Woody Allen-style credits. in the opening.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, you know, Woody Allen had these iconic credits, right? All of his movies have a particular typeface and,
Oh, I
and
see.
style.
Got
Yes.
ya.
And so when you see credits like this, you immediately think of him if you're a fan of his films. And this is what rolled at the start and the end of After the Hunt. So that's a bit of a weird combination, right? I'm intrigued. I definitely want to see this movie. I want to see what's going on with that. The festival also got a lot of criticism for not speaking out enough about the genocide in Gaza. But that does seem to have been somewhat quelled by the premiere of The Voice of Hind Rajab, which I also really want to see, which is a movie that depicts the attempted rescue of a 6-year-old who was trapped in a car under fire in Gaza. And the film received a 24-minute standing ovation, which is by far the longest of the festival. And, you know, the standing ovations are always what get a lot of press at the festival.
Yeah, it's like a 7-minute one is just standard, isn't it? So when you hear 7 minutes, apparently that's like everyone gets 7 minutes, so it doesn't mean much. That's what I'm beginning to learn. It's like, but yeah, 24-minute, that's significant.
But can you imagine? I mean, famously, the director of Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, left as soon as the standing ovation began. He just said, everyone go home. I don't need to sit through this. You guys, we're all hungry. Let's get going. But The Voice of Hind Rajab, that actually won the festival's Silver Lion. So that's basically second place. So bodes well for the Oscars. And the Golden Lion went to Jim Jarmusch's Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, which is described as the dark horse of the festival.
Okay.
I saw the trailer for this. It looks pretty cool. I love that it stars Tom Waits. His incredible voice is like the thing that opens the trailer, and it's just
Great.
it's just
That's
iconic.
If you're going to have Tom Waits in your film, you've got to have him in the voiceover, right? You've got to have him there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Other premieres that you like the look of, James?
Well, when I was looking into researching this, it's Catherine Bigelow's first feature film in 8 years. And another kind of one set in what I imagine is that the American industrial military complex. So it was a real-time military thriller with Idris Elba and Rebecca Ferguson. Netflix funded, but that's just the way it is these days. But grumble. But I'm very, very excited to see what she's up to, what her latest film is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, me too.
She's playing in a favourite wheelhouse, which is seems to be some big, muscular, grounded-ish thriller.
Yeah, definitely. I also really wanted to give a shout out to Werner Herzog, our favourite eccentric director, who, despite not having a smartphone, during the Venice Film Festival, decided he would join Instagram.
Yeah.
So everyone listening, if you haven't followed him already, please do. He opened his account with the tag, "I am Werner Herzog. This shall be my Instagram."
Yeah, I sent it to one of my friends, and they're like, "Is this real? Is this a fake account?" I was like, "No, this is the real deal."
This is the real deal. We're in the future. He was honoured with a Lifetime Achievement Honorary Golden Lion, which was presented to him by Francis Ford Coppola, which definitely gets us on to what we really wanted to talk about when it comes to the Venice Film Festival, which is the premiere of Megadoc, the behind-the-scenes documentary directed by Mike Figgis about Megalopolis.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard this was happening and when I heard that Mike Figgis was involved, I was very excited because Mike Figgis is a very accomplished director of both drama and documentaries in his own right. So to have him be the documentary filmmaker for Francis Ford Coppola film is a pretty sweet setup. You know, you've got an interesting filmmaker. It's not just somebody like myself making a behind-the-scenes puff piece to promote the film. This is going to have, just from us looking at the trailer for it as well. You know, we want to know what's gone down. We've heard all the rumours. There was lots of gossip around the shoot. You know, it flopped at the cinema. It's critically all over the place. But the point about it is, it's a very colourful production, whichever way you want to look at it. And I want to see as much of the backstage goss about what went down during the production of that film.
Yeah, I think there's a general rule of thumb that the worse the movie, the better the behind-the-scenes documentary.
Yeah.
I actually don't. I mean, I say that and I'm already arguing with myself because one of the best behind-the-scenes documentaries, which we've discussed before, is Hearts of Darkness, which was about Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. And that, amazingly, even though that shoot looked like the most chaotic, disastrous mess of all time in Hollywood history, ultimately we got one of the best films arguably ever made.
Yeah.
Not the case here, but I hear that the documentary about it is really fantastic. I was very interested to read that Figures said that the way it came about that he started making this movie was that he knew Coppola a bit, and when he heard that he was making this film that had been many years kind of coming, because Francis Ford Coppola famously had started working on Megalopolis like years and years before, decades before. He sent him a note saying congratulations, and kind of as like a joke said, P.S., would love to be a fly on the wall. And he didn't hear anything back. And then a few months later, Coppola just emailed him and said, sounds good. Could you be here in 3 weeks? And that was it. He was embedded in the shoot and made this behind the scenes movie. And I do, it's clear that this is, not, as you said, like not a hagiography. This is very much showing it all the trials and tribulations of making the film. And it props to Coppola for allowing that. He's not precious about it. He's got enough belief and confidence in this movie that he's okay with this kind of documentary.
Because it must put you in like a very unique headspace as a director when you're in a production, let's say you're on Megalopolis, and it's all going to hell, it's all falling apart, but you can just go, yeah, this happened before, this happened on Apocalypse Now, and look how that turned out. Like that kind of. To have that in the back of your head, you're like, oh yeah, I've got I can't remember, is it three best director Oscars? But he had the run in the 70s. Like, I've been on bigger productions that have gone worse than this. It'll be fine.
But I mean, he could have just said, once the film came out and totally flopped, he could have said, I don't want to release Megadoc. Can you do that? I don't know if who kind of has the rights to a behind-the-scenes documentary.
Well, I'm going to say, because Coppola self-funded it, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm sure Coppola had absolutely the ability to can the project. I'm going to assume if it's essentially coming from his pocket.
Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, more power to him. I've just looked up, and Megadoc is set to release in the UK on the 19th of September as general release. So I'm hoping the UK should hopefully follow, because the thing that I'm most excited to see, apparently there's a moment where Aubrey Plaza challenges Dustin Hoffman to an arm wrestle, and all of the cast and crew gather around to watch this, and apparently seeing that is worth the price of admission alone.
Okay, I mean, I guess we're now at a stage where we could have a Francis Ford Coppola making of documentary all day. I personally would start with, we could do it chronologically. We'd go Hearts of Darkness. We could do the DVD extra for Making of Dracula, and then finish on Megadoc. You got a good day's view in there.
Okay, perfect. When we get to doing screenings, we can do a marathon of making of behind the scenes Coppola.
Yeah, there we go.
And the thing that I'm just so fascinated about is that this is merely one stop on the Megalopolis roadshow, because Megalopolis, guys, its release did not begin and end last year. We're still very much in the midst of it. Over the summer, Coppola took his movie on the road. He screened it across 6 cities in the US and followed the screening with a talk with himself, which was called How to Change Our Future. So
that's like a big topic, Francis.
But he was leaning into this idea that he made this film as a warning to young people. This was to try and help inspire change, to save, I guess, us. But I mean, it was interesting to me because he talked about how this was part of. He hoped that it would help the film be brought back into cinemas across the US, perhaps without him going along. But obviously, all of these screenings sold out because Coppola was going to be there to do this talk. So it didn't quite work out that way. But he, at that point, was very clear about the fact that I don't want it going on a streaming site. It was made to be seen on a big screen. I want to keep this movie going.
I'm with you. Hallelujah.
He also has a graphic novel that's coming out based on the film. So there are all these things. But then this weekend, I saw the movie has announced that Megalopolis is now available for streaming on its platform. So
Watch it on your mobile phone here.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know if at this point he's slightly given up on the rest of the kind of Megalopolis roadshow. Is this the end of the line now, or is there more to come?
Does he even know? Does he know that it's going on Mubi? Have his finance people just been like, yeah, you can put it on Mubi. We just won't tell him.
He's a control freak. I don't believe he wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I reckon they sold him on the fact that Mubi isn't like those other streamers. It's the indie darling of the streaming world. And actually,
Probably.
I'm forgetting the thing that he apparently is recutting Megalopolis, right? So we will be getting another
Oh my-
edition, another version, the director's cut. So no, it's not over.
I mean, the worst versions, the weakest versions of Apocalypse Now are all the countless goddamn re-edits he's done. You know, the Redux version, whatever the latest one that came out last year is. It's like the original theatrical cut is the best, and I'm going to take a punt and say that's probably going to be true for Megalopolis as well. I don't think there's like hidden in the rushes if you just recut it. Suddenly Megalopolis becomes like ta-da.
I mean, I agree, but like, I mean, the film is so chaotic and all over the place that I actually have to believe that there is a better film in there.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's Coppola who will make that. I don't think,
Yeah.
when do we know of any director's cuts that have got shorter rather than longer?
Oh, good question. Yeah.
Listeners, write in and
think we
tell us. There must be one or
Yeah.
two, but it generally
Mostly
is
they
not.
get longer, yeah.
They generally get longer, and I think that's definitely the case with Coppola.
Yeah. He's definitely not a tightener, that's
no,
for sure.
No. Okay, so to finish up, James, we have a recommendation again, listeners. James.
I like to kind of see what's out there, because I mean, cinemas will only really properly promote and push new releases to get people to come in cinema. And what I've started to notice over the past 5 years, I mean, I think it's been happening forever, but is that there's certainly much more older product getting re-released, or there's certainly more interesting things that aren't being highly promoted. So I'm just trying to kind of point those out here. And so the latest one that I came across was that Cineworld, the franchise in the UK, are between September the 19th and October the 2nd having 4DX Rewind, which is a chance to see some of the better 4DX films for £5.99.
Ooh, okay, so what can we see?
We can see now, as far as the best ones I think that I've seen for the actual 4DX experience, then you can see Top Gun Maverick and you can see Twisters. I'd say out of those two, Top Gun Maverick's the better one. If you want to experience what 4DX is like, they've also got Frozen coming back 28 years later, which I'm not that fussed about.
That's a very short rewind. I mean, it only came out in the summer.
I know. F1, the movie, I imagine the racing sequence will be pretty banging in that.
Actually, just for our listeners who haven't experienced it, what is 4DX?
4DX is like the biggest gimmick ever, but I like a gimmick now and again. So what it is, it's the 4D should give a bit of a clue, is that it's engaging more of your senses. It's not good enough nowadays that you just sit in a cinema and watch a well-made story on a large screen and sound. No, you also need to have a seat with like 4 or 6 different, many different motion axes that it can take. So you can get rattled around, bounced, vibrated, prodders in your back to prod your back when anything happens on screen, air cannons by either ear that simulate bullets whizzing past you,
Oh, wow.
snow that comes down. Oh yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 different types of scent that can be pumped into the room, water vapor, water mist, big fans to simulate weather. So the point is, like, a lot of things that happen on screen can have some kind of physical element to them recreated in the cinema. So depending on what your view of these things are, it could just be hugely distracting and annoying from the film, or it can, like, the way I sell it to myself, it's like if you fancy a bit of a theme park vibe to your night out, afternoon out, go see something in 4DX. It's essentially the film with a theme park ride attached to it. Some are better than others. This 4DX Rewind, all the films are actually very good. Some films you go see are brutal. Like, I went to see The Matrix Resurrection, and it was like the cinema was physically beating us up. It took our money, mugged us, and kicked us in the, and it was like every time, like, we all came out and we had cricked necks. It was like somebody had just pressed the number 10 button and put everything on maximum.
Well, looking at this list, the more recent releases I'm less interested in, having seen a couple of them. But Jumanji, the 1995 Jumanji, I think that would be very fun to see.
Yeah,
in this
I think
format. So. Very good. Okay, well, we'll add a link to the show notes for anyone who's interested. I mean, £5.99, that's a bargain for any screening, let alone one with all these bells and whistles. So.
Bells and whistles, yeah, exactly. It's fun. If you haven't tried it out, I'd say at least this way you're not going to break the bank.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's it, everyone, for another episode of Groovy Movies. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, as always, for listening. And if you could leave us a like or a nice review, it all helps get the podcast out into the world. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Groovy Movies is produced and edited by us, Lily Austin and James Brailsford. And James also produced the theme music.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Groovy Movies Pod, or email us groovymoviespod@gmail.com.
For more information about the films discussed, check out the show notes.